More breaking news as questions surround the Trump administration's justification for carrying out strikes on Venezuela. Senate Intel Committee Chair Tom Cotton says the capture of Maduro did not require approval from Congress.
Congress isn't notified when the FBI is going to arrest a drug trafficker or a cyber criminal here in the United States, nor should Congress be notified when the executive branch is executing arrests on indicted persons. And that's really what you can make the analogy to here. In fact, the FBI was part of this operation, part of the arrest of Maduro and his wife, who were indicted here in the United States. So Congress doesn't need to be notified every time the executive branch is making an arrest.
Joining us now is former 2016 presidential candidate and Republican governor of Ohio, John Kasich. He's an NamMS now, political analyst, for which we're grateful. Governors, I welcome you. You also served in Congress on the House Armed Services Committee. You did so for 18 years. So what should Congress's role be in this situation?
Well, they at least should have informed what we call the Big Eight. These are people who run the Armed Services Committee and the Defense Appropriations Committee. But my concern is not so much about that. I am greatly concerned about that and the fleeting influence of Congress. But what I'm most concerned about here, and I think we all agree, Maduro was a terrible guy, a terrible dictator. But the question is, when the United States uses its military, which is what we have done here, is it in the direct interest of our country? Because if something is not in the direct interest of our country, then how do we guide where we're going to go? There's a lot of very bad people in this world that do a lot of bad things, but we have to know where those places are where we intervene that directly affects our national security and our interests. Secondly, when we make a decision like this, we say this is in our sphere of influence. These are our neighbors. Well, what's to prevent other powerful countries like China or Russia? Russia they're invaded Ukraine under the premise that, hey, that's our area. That's our sphere of influence. We can do what we want. So look, in the short term, it looks as though they pulled this off and it looks very, very good. But what are the implications for the long term? Is this going to embolden powerful countries to be able to just take matters into their own hands? Because, we do have international rules that govern the global order. And it's just very important they are not violated, even when it looks initially like things are good. I worry about the long-term implications of what happened in Venezuela today.
So both these points, sir, that you've just made, the first one is the Trump administration's explanation for doing this being stopping narco traffickers and the drugs from coming into the United States. Does that answer your first question that you posed? Does this directly benefit the United States? Which we know about Venezuela.
We can talk about lots of countries where drugs are flowing. Mexico, Colombia. These are lots of places like that. But the real issue is, does this affect our direct national security? And I don't think the case has been made. Now, some people may disagree with me. But when you use the U.S. military to intervene in another country, that's a very, very serious matter. And I just heard it said that this was sort of a legal action. I used the U.S. military to go in there and do all this. So, it's a serious problem when you have drugs coming into the United States. But I think there are other ways maybe to accomplish this, which would have been to continue to squeeze them economically. But again, I think that what does that say about other powerful countries? Does China now say, well, you know what, Taiwan, that's something that, that's in our sphere of influence. We need to do something. Now, I'm not telling you that that's necessarily going to happen, but it would give me pause. And if I were the commander in chief, maybe that's why I'm not commander in chief, I would have been very reluctant to do that. I would have pressured him. But, when we worry about oil, when we worry about all these things, why aren't we shutting off Russia's oil? They're selling oil all over the world. I mean, these are very complicated matters. But I must go back to the fact that what precedent does this create and what does this do for the international order that governs the way in which countries are to work with one another?
So part of the ongoing operation going forward, it could involve American boots on the ground, from what the president said today. Is that overstepping, sir, if there's no congressional approval? And how might the public react to that?
Well, for overtime, yes. If we're going to have an extended presence, the Congress should be involved. Now, look, serving on the Armed Services Committee, I saw so many things happen in the world. U.S. troops in Lebanon, we lost them there. The barracks were blown up. I never supported that. Were we right in the way in which we went to Afghanistan? Should we have had boots on the ground, or should we have used special forces to do what we needed to do? There's areas all over the world where we don't like people. We don't like the things they do. They repress their people, and they're despicable. But the question is, when do we use our military? When do we do that in something that we can justify? Is if we hadn't done that, our country would really have been at risk.
What about the spectacle, sir, of a foreign leader on trial here in New York? How might that be perceived, not just here in the U.S., but globally? And what about via the eyes of Trump MAGA supporters?
Well, I don't think anybody is going to say, well, Maduro, this was improper. Nobody likes Maduro. Just the same way that we didn't like Panama's Noriega. There's a lot of really bad people out there. In terms of the MAGA folks, I don't know where they're going to be on this. I mean, it was supposed to be America first. And I'm not an America firster. I don't think that makes any sense. But again, we have to be very cautious when we use the military. Is this going to have some long-term political benefit? Or I don't think so. I think that this will pass. But look, the Congress has to assert itself. They just can't. If we're going to have people on the ground there, the Congress is going to have to approve it. They have not been approving many things lately when it comes to this administration, or even the last few administrations. And that is, in my opinion, an abdication of power. Look, the founders set up this government so that you had a judicial and you have an executive and you have a legislative. The legislative body has certain prerogatives. They've abandoned them, and that is dangerous, not just when it comes to military activity, but really across the board.
Really a sobering statement there, for which I thank you, John Kasich. It's always good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.